Welcome to Psychology Explains Research Roundup video. So just a short video summarising some of the pieces of research that I've came across in the past week or 10 days that might be of interest to some people. In this video, we're going to be looking at research looking at the effects of medication on mice to reverse Alzheimer's, video games and its relationship with sexual health, the neural underpinnings of trypophobia, and how girls with autism may use social camouflage to delay or prevent their diagnosis of autism. There's been previous research linking type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's, which is the most common type of dementia. Diabetes is both a risk factor for causing dementia and can make its debilitating effects progress at a faster rate. The rate of dementia is expected to rise to 2 million people in the UK by 2051, according to Alzheimer's Society. So looking for treatments for the disorder is a top priority for the researchers. What they did in this research was give a drug referred to as a triple receptor antagonist. In this case, it is an antagonist for GIP1, GIP and glucagon receptors at the same time. These three chemicals are linked to diabetes. So they are GIP, the gastric inhibitory polypeptide, the glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1. Both of those stimulate insulin secretion from pancreatic beta cells, and glucagon causes the transformation of glycogen into glucose. So three chemicals that are linked to diabetes. So what they did in this study was give this medication to mice which have been genetically engineered to have some human genes that are linked to them inheriting Alzheimer's. Mice don't naturally get Alzheimer's, so what we had to do was give them the propensity for getting it via gene manipulation and giving them some human genes. The mice on these medications were compared to mice who were not on the medication on a series of tests, such as a maze test, learning tests, and memory formation tests. These drugs were able to enhance levels of brain growth factor, which protect nerve cell functioning. It reduced the amount of amyloid plaques in the brain, which are linked to Alzheimer's. It reduced both chronic inflammation and oxidative stress on the brain, and it slowed down the rate of nerve cell loss. This could be the very first step to assist in preventing or helping people with Alzheimer's based off this sort of diabetes medication research. The aim of this study was to look at the relationship between the use of video games and male sexual health. So what they did was administer a self-report questionnaire about premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction in men aged 18 to 50. And what they did was then they looked at the results and correlated them together. So these results show that there's a correlation between video game use and male sexual health. Men who played video games for more than 1 hour a day were less likely to have premature ejaculation, but more likely to have a decreased sexual desire compared to those who do not play video games. The third study looks at the concept of trypophobia. Trypophobia is a fear or an aversion to a cluster of holes. If you have trypophobia, thanks for watching the video, but you might want to look away for the remainder of this slide because there are going to be some images that are linked to this fear. These clusters of holes could be many things from honeycombs, lotus seed pods, or aerated chocolate. Trypophobia, however, is not recognised by the DSM as a legitimate true phobia in the sense that we talk about other phobias. Previous research has found that trypophobia might be linked to an evolutionary basis. Some phobias are, and they believe that trypophobia may be one of them. The trypophobic reaction was linked to visual properties of evolutionary threatened animals such as snakes and spiders, which triggered an ingrained fear response. This current study used eye tracking technology to measure the changes in the pupil size in response to pictures of threatening animals, clustered holes, or neutral images. What they found, however, was a very different response. While snakes and spiders caused a dilation of the pupils, a behaviour which is seen in many phobias, the presentation of the holes resulted in a contraction of the pupils. This is a behaviour more seen with disgust than with fear. The authors theorised that the clusters of holes, which elicited a response in trypophobics, is an evolutionary adaptation, but it's indicative of contamination or disease. The holes are visual cues for rotten or mouldy food or skin marred with an infection. So it results in disgust rather than an actual fear. So the aversion some people feel to the clusters of holes is an involved response to avoid disease and infection. The fourth study is about autism. Autism is a disorder that affects males more than it affects females. The most quoted ratio is 3 males for every 1 female. This study asked parents to report on the behaviours of their children with autism. What it found is that female children with autism were more often showing deficits in skills like getting up in the morning, getting dressed, making small talk, So even though they met the same clinical criteria as the males, they actually had a greater deficit in some areas. Some have suggested that this means the girls are suffering from autism to a greater degree, but the test isn't picking it up. They're using some sort of social camouflage skills that they've picked up to hide some of the characteristics of autism that the tests are measuring for, whereas there are other characteristics not measured for on the tests, which they are suffering kind of greater deficits in. So the number of women with autism may be hidden by this social camouflage ability. That's just 4 quick pieces of research from Research Roundup this week. If you're interested in more videos looking at current research, topics in psychology explained a bit more, or looking at classic theories and classic studies, please subscribe and stay tuned to Psychology Explained.